So welcome to this overhead hoist servicing and maintenance training. Today we're going to focus on the R&M Spacemaster, the SX and the KONE CXT series hoists. Everything discussed in this video comes directly from the official service manuals for these hoists. This training was originally developed as part of our in-house technician program, but I decided to make it public to assist our customers, especially those of you who perform your own daily and frequent inspections. The goal of this video is to help or educate and bring some understanding to what is required for the safe and compliant maintenance of hoist systems. So we'll be focusing, as I said, on the R&M Spacemaster SX and the KONE CXT series. Although they have different names, they share the same global engineering standards and servicing requirements. And everything you'll hear here applies broadly to all makes and models of wire rope hoists, because the inspection and maintenance principles are the same across the industry. We'll also be covering other hoist makes and models in some upcoming videos, so be sure to subscribe and stay up to date with our channel for future sessions. You never know, the next video might be covering your hoist. So understanding the safe working period. This might be a completely new term for you, but every hoist has what is called a safe working period, or SWP for short. This represents the total number of working hours that a hoist can safely operate under its rated load and duty class before a general overhaul or replacement is required. This might help educate on why your brakes only last a certain time, your friction discs and your brake pads and such. So the Spacemaster XX and KONE CXT hoists are both designed within defined duty classes that determine their total service life. This system applies equally to every manufacturer in the hoisting industry. So duty classes and design life. The duty class identifies how often a hoist operates and how heavy its average loads are compared to its rated capacity. The heavier the use, the higher the load, the shorter the lifespan before overhaul. Same principle as your motor vehicle, right? The more kilometers you put on it, the more your tires are going to wear. There's no difference in operating your hoist, right? So, for example, M3 light duty is designed for about 800 working hours. The M4, so that's your moderate duty workshop hoist, they're designed for about 1,600 working hours, right? These are probably the most common that we have around, right? The M5 heavy duty, which is for production or frequent lifting, they're about 3,200 working hours. The M6, the very heavy duty, designed for about 6,300 working hours. The M7 continuous heavy duty, you find these in foundries, mining or steel applications, are designed for about 12,500 working hours, right? And then process cranes, so extreme heavy duty, or M8, they're designed for about 25,000 working hours. These working hour figures represent the total design life when operating at or near the hoist's full rated load, right? So how do we calculate the safe working period? To calculate this, how much of the safe work period remains, there's a formula we can use, right? Remaining safe working period equals 1 minus the actual operating hours divided by the design safe working period multiplied by 100 to convert it to a percentage, right? For example, if an M6 hoist with a design life of 6,300 hours has already run for 4,200 hours, we can apply this formula, right? So 4,200 divided by 6,300 gives us 0.67. So 1 minus 0.67 gives us 33 times by 100. This means that roughly 33% of its safe working period remains before a general overhaul is required, right? So this will help you understand how much life you have left in your equipment. If you have some sort of a monitor to track the hours, or an hour meter to track the hours the hoist worked, it's much easier for you than to keep track of your maintenance and know when you're going to need to replace your equipment or when it needs to be overhauled, instead of getting caught in a surprise, right? Oh, my hoist just completely failed, bearings are worn, right? So adjusting for load conditions, if your hoist generally lifts lighter than its rated capacity, right, the lifespan can be extended using a load adjustment factor. Now, I'm sure many of you have got a big smile on your face now hearing that, right? And here are some standard factors. At 100% of rated load, the factor is obviously 1. But at 63% of the rated load, it's 1.25. At 40% of the rated load, it's 2. At 25% of the rated load, it's 4. So to find the adjusted safe work period, or SWP, multiply the design life by the adjustment factor, right? So for example, if an M6 hoist designed for 6,300 hours usually only lifts about 40% of its rated load, we simply go 6,300 times 2, which gives us 12,600 hours before we can expect to be overhauling the unit, right? That means under those conditions, the hoist can safely operate up to 12,600 hours, right, before this major overhaul. So just a field rule of thumb, when you don't have monitoring available, right, when there's no data available, you can use this practical field guide to estimate the hoist lifespan, right? M3 hoist used roughly 1 hour per day is about 2 years, right? The M4 hoist used 2 hours per day gives you about 2 to 3 years, right? The M5 hoist used 4 hours per day give you about 3 to 5 years. The M6 hoist used 8 hours per day will give you 3 years. The M7 used 16 hours a day will give you 3 to 5 years, right? These are educational estimates, and they don't replace actual tracking of the manufacturer's service data, right? An hour meter is key on any machine, right? Just like your vehicle tracks kilometers, a hoist should be tracking hours, and almost all the new ones out there, or at least the good new ones out there, they have hour meters built into their systems, right? So brake disc lifespan in relation to hoist duty class. So these are questions we get asked all the time, is why did my brake only last this long? Well, here we're going to cover it, right? In general, if the brake disc is serviced and maintained correctly, its lifespan closely follows the same duty class life expectancy as the rest of the hoisting mechanism, which is defined by the safe working period. So that means a properly maintained brake disc on an M6 hoist can reasonably be expected to last the full 6,300 working hours. And on an M7 hoist brake, it could last up to 12,500 hours, provided that inspections, adjustments, and cleaning are performed at the correct intervals. So the reason for this is simple. The brake is an integral part of the hoisting mechanism. Its design and materials are rated for the number of load cycles that define the safe working period. So in other words, the brake is built to match the hoist duty class. It's not a weaker or shorter life component. However, this assumed lifespan depends heavily on proper servicing, right? So these following points are essential. Regular inspection. Brake air gap, torque, and disc thickness must be checked during frequent and periodic inspections. Clean and dry environments, so oil, dust, or contamination on the brake disc will dramatically shorten its life, right? Correct adjustment. Maintaining the specified air gap prevents drag or slippage that causes premature wear. Electrical checks. The brake coil voltage must be within the correct range. Over or under voltage can cause partial release or uneven wear. Replacement of linings or discs. When wear reaches the manufacturer's limit, the disc or friction lining must be replaced. Never operate beyond the minimum allowed thickness. So for training purposes, it's accurate to say this, right? When properly serviced or adjusted, the brake disc or friction lining has a lifespan that generally matches the hoist's safe work period for its duty class. So if the hoist is rated for 6,300 working hours under an M6 duty classification, and the brake is serviced as prescribed, inspected regularly, kept clean, and adjusted correctly, the brake can be expected to last that same 6,300 hours before overhaul, right? So the only time the brake life differs significantly from the SWP is when the hoist operates in dusty, humid, or high-duty start environments, right? Start-stop environments. So, for example, short lift, repetitive production work, right? So start, stop, up, let go, up, down, up. That type of function, which is common in some of our industries, right? And what we do to overcome that is often put a delay on them, or even plugging just to help the brake so it doesn't always grab the load. The mechanism will take the load and then the brake will grab it, right? So when loads are lowered frequently under power rather than held by the brake, this increases heat and wear, right? So in these conditions, the brake lining may need midlife replacement, let me say, right? Even if the hoist itself has not yet reached the end of its safe work period. So let's look at these inspection requirements. Inspections are divided into 4 categories: daily, frequent, periodic, and general overhaul. Each category has a specific purpose and must be performed by qualified personnel. So your daily inspection, your pre-use check, right? It's performed by the operator before each shift. Check the hook and latch for cracks or deformation. Inspect the wire rope for kinks, broken wires, or bird caging. Test upper and lower limits. Ensure all pendant or radio controls function correctly. Listen for unusual sounds during operation. Check that the brake holds the load securely. Make sure warning labels are present and legible. If any fault is found, remove the hoist from service until repaired. Right? The frequent inspection, or monthly or quarterly, are performed by a competent technician. Right? Test all hoist, trolley, and bridge motions. Inspect hooks, sheaves, rope drums, and rope guides for wear or cracking. Check trolley and bridge wheel alignments and end stops. Inspect the coupling for wear, tightness, and noise. Ensure limit switches and warning devices function properly. Inspect electrical cables and panels for loose or damaged connections. Lubricate all moving parts according to the maintenance schedule, right? You find this all in the maintenance manual. Then you get your periodic inspection, your annual, or we can say at every 10% of SWP, right? It's assumed that we're using up 10% annually, right? So this inspection is performed by the qualified service personnel. A periodic inspection must be conducted at least once per year or after every 10% of the hoist's safe work period, whichever comes first, right? So for reference, 10% of the SWP is approximately 80 hours for an M3 hoist, 160 hours for an M4, 320 hours for an M5, 630 hours for an M6, 1,250 hours for an M7, or the M8 hoist at 2,500 hours. So we've had the question asked so many times, well, you just inspected this a year ago. Well, how many hours did you work it in that year? That brake pad's life cycle is only so much, right? How often did you plug it? How often were you inching it? All these things add to the wear of these units, right? In the perfect world, yes, you'll get what they designed for, the SWP, right? But the reality of industry, nothing's perfect, right? So this means that the M6 hoist, for example, should receive a full periodic inspection roughly every 600 working hours of its operation, right? But we mustn't forget the Canadian standard CSA B167 specifies that periodic inspections must be carried out at a minimum annually. So even if the 10% usage threshold has not yet been reached, right? Periodic inspections must include inspecting the brake assembly, checking torque, wear and air gap, checking gearbox oil level and replacing oil if contaminated, testing motor bearings and inspecting electrical insulation, verifying overload protection and limit switch operation, measuring rope drum groove wear and rope diameter, inspecting and lubricating couplings, bearings and shafts, inspecting travel gear and rails for alignment and wear, performing a full load operational test to confirm performance, right? So our general overhaul at 0% of SWP. So this is performed only by factory trained or manufacturer authorized technicians, right? The hoist is disassembled and the hoisting mechanism is inspected, right? So you've completely disassembled the hoist. You replace all bearings, seals and brake components, inspect or replace motor, gearbox, coupling, and rope drum as required, right? Reassemble using approved lubricants and new seals, and then conduct full load and brake performance tests before returning the hoist to service. So once this overhaul is complete, the safe working period resets to 100%, right? So you've rebuilt the hoist, it's good for the safe working period all over again, right? The lubrication and service schedule. So the wire rope needs to be lubricated monthly to annually, depending on usage. Rope guide needs to be greased. I wouldn't say annual, it depends on their environment, right? Depending on the environment, sometimes it needs to be greased every couple of months and not just annually, right? Hook bearings, those you need to grease. Grease annually. Rope drum bearings, grease annually while rotating the drum, right? The gearbox is factory filled, but the oil must be changed if contaminated or if leakage occurs. Traveling gear, inspect annually and top up the oil, right? Just general maintenance. Coupling, inspect and lubricate annually and repair during overhaul, right? So use only approved lubricants for the R&M SX hoist. They recommend the Mobilith S8C460 or the Shell Gadius S5 V220 or Castrol S series for bearings, right? And the Elascon 30 or Ropi nano lubricant for their wire ropes. Coupling inspection and maintenance. So on the SX hoist, there's a coupling. If you remove the motor, you'll find a coupling inside there, right? So this coupling needs to be inspected for cracks, wear, or damage elements, right? Check alignment, bolt tightness, listen for vibration, right? Apply a light film of grease to prevent corrosion. So if you've removed the motor, put grease when you put it back, right? They actually recommend that every time you remove the motor and expose that coupling, to replace it. If you're not going to replace it each time, if it has any rust on it, replace it, right? When replacing, always lock out and tag out the power. Remove the guard, disconnect the bolt, separate the motor, clean the shafts, fit the new coupling, realign, talk to specification, and perform both at both a no load and a full load test, right? Couplings must be replaced at every general overhaul or sooner if damage is found, right? Generally when the coupling goes, the hoist starts to vibrate. If your hoist is vibrating and you're not sure why, it's most likely the coupling is gone, right? So authorized servicing and record keeping. All servicing must be performed by trained authorized technicians using genuine replacement parts and approved lubricants. Inspection results must be recorded and kept for the life of the hoist. After any repair, the hoist must pass both a no-load and rated load test before being returned to use. Some safety practices: always follow lockout and tagout procedures. Never bypass limit switches or overload protection. Replace worn wire ropes, hooks, or couplings immediately. Ensure all operators and technicians are trained and competent. Safe hoist depends on safe people, right? That's the bottom line. Safe hoists depend on safe people. So in summary, the R&M Spacemaster SX and the KONE CXT hoists are built to the highest international standards of quality and reliability, right? Each operates within a defined duty class and has a measurable safe working period in working hours. By understanding that period, performing the required daily, frequent, periodic, and overall inspections, and maintaining critical components like the brakes, couplings, and wire ropes, you will ensure safe, efficient, and compliant lifting operations every time. So routine inspections and maintenance aren't just recommended, they are essential for safety and longevity of your equipment. So thanks for completing this hoist servicing and maintenance training on the R&M Spacemaster SX and KONE CXT. Stay safe, work smart, and always lift responsibly. This is Brad with Venter Cranes, and I'll see you in the next video.